Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Today in Passages and Pranayama, we're getting back into some Swami Vivekananda. Some little months ago now, I did discuss one of his poems out of what is his complete works. This is from his four yogas. This one is part of Bhakti Yoga, and it comes from the second chapter, although I'm going to get into the first chapter a little bit as well. All right, so it begins, right? This is the very beginning of the second chapter, and I'm going to go through about, I think, just two paragraphs, and we'll comment on them as well. So here we go. The chapter's title is The Bhakta's Renunciation Results from Love. We see love everywhere in nature. Whatever in society is good and great and sublime is the working out of that love. Whatever in society is very bad, nay, diabolical, is also the ill-directed working out of the same emotion of love. It is this same emotion that gives us the pure and holy conjugal love between husband and wife, or otherwise, as well as the sort of love which goes to satisfy the lowest forms of animal passion. The emotion is the same, but its manifestation is different in the different cases. It is the same feeling of love, well or ill-directed, that impels one man to do good and to give all he has to the poor, while it makes another man cut the throats of brethren and take away all their possessions. The former loves others as much as the latter loves himself. The direction of the love is bad in the case of the latter, but it is right and proper in the other case. The same fire that cooks a meal for us would burn a child, and it is no fault of the fire if it did so. The difference lies in the way in which it is used. Therefore, love, the intense longing for association, the strong desire on the part of two to become one, and it may, after all, of all to become merged in one, is being manifested everywhere in higher or lower forms, as the case may be. Bhakti Yoga is the science of higher love. It shows us how to direct it. It shows us how to control it, how to manage it, how to use it, how to give it a new aim, as it were, and from it obtain the highest and most glorious results. That is, how to make it lead us to spiritual blessedness. Bhakti Yoga does not say, give up. It only says, love the highest. And everything low naturally falls off from him, the object of whose love is the highest. Okay. Of course, if you're familiar with Swami Vivekananda, and his writings are so eloquent, beautiful, and well, he's one of the greatest thinkers of Vedanta philosophy, spirituality, and yoga. Okay, so I do want to touch on a few things. Here in the very beginning of the chapter, we see love everywhere in nature. Okay, whatever in society is good and great and sublime is the working out of that love. Whatever in society is very bad, nay, diabolical, is also the ill-directed working out of the same emotion of love. All right, so you can see the two sides, same coin, right? Two sides, same coin. Right? Love can kind of direct us towards wholeness. And unfortunately, right, love can also move us in the direction of wickedness as well. And it depends so much on the current condition of our mind. A few notes here. So attachment, right? So that's the thing, right? So attachment. It seems to be the main thing that comes up, or most immediate thing that might come up when one is trying to navigate the very slippery emotional slope of love. When we just see it as an emotion, those two sides become quite apparent. Right? We have love, if everything's going well, is incredibly fulfilling, nurturing, and hopefully that love is also reciprocated. On the other hand, right, the desires, the attachment, we can so easily confuse love for attachment. And as we know, if you are a practitioner of yoga, if you study the Yoga Sutra at all, attachment, raga, is one of the 5 corruptions of the mind. So it is in that attachment that we end up becoming or maybe sliding down that slippery slope of the emotion that love can create that leads us towards wickedness. Okay, so attachment can so often be misunderstood as love. If in fact it is attachment, there is a feeling of possessiveness, a desire to hold on to, and if nothing, that is the object of possession begins to slip away, then love's manifestation turns wicked, right? So it becomes, okay, I'm sure I should have thought this through a little bit, because there are numerous characters in movies and film, TV, that causes us, or rather is a great example of how love can be kind of like misguided. So if it becomes a desire to possess, if the attachment is so deep, then typically that relationship will not work out. And unfortunately, great suffering can come, right? Whether from the person who is attempting to possess, right, in its absence of that possession, or in most extreme and quite severe cases, that suffering can come, sometimes physical and all too often mental, by the quote-unquote recipient of this misguided love. So it's something we have to be really careful of when we kind of explore and try to better understand where the source of our own love comes from. Okay. Yes, and a few sentences down, I'll start here. The emotion is the same, but its manifestation is different in the different cases. It is the same feeling of love, well or ill directed, that impels one man to do good and to give all he has to the poor, while it makes another man cut the throats of his brethren and take away all their possessions. Now, the former loves others as much as the latter loves himself. Oh, it's just amazing, right? What a great way to put it. So this of course is a lot about like the ego, right? And the ego is playing a huge role in one's direction of love, right? Is it something that is required of that person to feel loved because there might be something missing? So the ego, imagine someone so presumptuous that they themselves believe that they are the object to be loved. It becomes a one-way street where one's needs for fulfillment by others is so grand. The void that may have been created by past conditioning needs to be filled, that they may just seek out those who are willing to fill that void and yet never reciprocate. So, and this idea of the one-way street, is so important. If we're directing our love just one direction, it should be the direction outward, not the consumption of love, the seeking out of love. And here I continue to write, even worse, in its most extreme presentation, we call them narcissists, right? So, right, one who just feels they require that love so much to be fulfilled themselves, and yet so rarely do they kind of present love outwardly. Okay, so as we have seen, I can't keep anything these days non-political. So as we've seen with the last president, they make terrible leaders, but those who identify with that void easily becomes their followers. And of course, these are just my thoughts. As it might be with the practice of yoga, and how one's condition is both created and then their karma created from that condition, right? Their actions moving out of that conditioning. The void that might be felt by someone like Trump, whether that void was created by himself or, maybe by his parents, right, his upbringing, it certainly seems that that void is very real. And what I find so interesting that, his most extreme, and I think that's the best word to use there, his most extreme followers seem to be those who also are lacking something in their lives. There's been many news reports about how they're disaffected, right? That they're being left behind. And I find it kind of amusing, right? And maybe I'm sure I'm certainly overstepping my boundaries. I'm not a sociologist. But think about all of the black and brown people, Asian people in our culture, who've been left behind for generation after generation after generation. And yet, there's the void that most 99.789% don't feel the need to follow a narcissist. And why is that? Why is it? Because it is those who've been lifted up and might not meet the expectations, right? It's the whole, we hope that our children might be able to have better lives than ourselves. And those that have been lifted up so much and find it so difficult to reach that height, maybe it's their own doing, maybe it's not, it might just be circumstance, right? A streak of bad luck. But it's certainly no need to take actions of an extremist. It is certainly no excuse to follow a con man, charlatan. So anyway, but I find that very interesting and would love to expand on that idea because there are so many people. I'm fortunate to be a white guy. So, I'm obviously speaking from the perspective of a guy who, whose grandparents are, all Italian, and they came here and back in the late 19th century, all the way up through World War II. And, we're fortunate enough to make a living. And, when I think about Bhakti Yoga, it's not the wealth. It's not the desire to like live up to their expectations necessarily, but it is so much about respecting like what they've done for myself, right, for my family, what they had to go through, especially my mother's side, right, and just peasants. That's all they were, and they were able to make a living for themselves. And this is one of the reasons why I love America, as much as I'd love to see some pretty great, grand changes to the way we kind of manage our culture. Anyway, okay. And so, but to those, of course, who are not white and male, for that matter, right? You have more reason to be disaffected than anybody else. But let's hope, right? Let's hope that we fill that void with love. And as I will get to in a little bit, there is a path for us to understand how to direct, as Swami says, right? How do we direct this love? Okay. And here we go. So, if I may, Bhakti Yoga, this is the third passage here I'd like to cover. Bhakti Yoga is the science of higher love. It shows us how to direct it. It shows us how to control it. So important. How to manage it and how to use it. How to give it a new aim, as it were. And from it, obtain the highest and most glorious results. That is, how to make it lead us to spiritual blessedness. Whew. Oh, God. Right, so really beautiful. So upon reading this, I was really contemplating a lot about, what are the steps that we could possibly take to kind of get a hold of the very powerful force of love, right? Like all things in yoga, but especially the emotions. And if we allow those emotions to just run amok, if we are unaware of how they manifest in our thoughts and words and actions, then ultimately our karma, our future actions will constantly be guided by the sometimes drastic swing of emotions. I love to study Taoism and and Buddhism, and there's kind of, especially in Buddhism, although not a Buddhist necessarily, a coldness to it. And in Taoism and in Vedanta, there is this kind of understanding of emotions, right? To be pleasant in all emotions, to be content no matter your emotional state. Right now, but the thing is, it's hard to get there, right? We can see it in our adolescence, right? One day we're just way up here, yes, and then the next moment we could be way down here. And part of our work, not just in our adolescence, but also in our adulthood, is to have good control and a better understanding of how those emotions might dictate our actions. So I got these 4 or 5. They're 5 steps here. The one I'm still working through a little bit. All right, now the first one, right, is gratitude. Simple, right? We know, we've seen over and over again. Well, maybe you have seen, and if you have not, catch up, right? Because the science of gratitude is profound, right? The effect on us is profound. And so keeping a gratitude journal, reminding yourself, like for some people, right, they pray, right? They pray maybe to something higher than themselves. For some of us, we take just a few moments. What's it called? A word that is kind of just flew out of my mind. We reflect, back on those moments throughout our day, past few days, week, those moments that we're grateful for. And it doesn't necessarily mean that things went our way. Sometimes we had to carry, a heavy burden, or the trials of life were weighing us down. And upon looking back, we notice that they, in fact, were a gift and something to be grateful for. Okay, the second one is humility. Right? There's no better ego buster than humility. So if you feel as though, one of the best things that you could do for yourself, if you feel as though that love is kind of missing in your life, is to love yourself, right? Love the things that you do. I'm going to use this word in a way that I do not want you to be confused by, and that is passion, right? Become passionate. And that is not find desire in things that you do, but find great enthusiasm in the work that you do, right? Love the work that you do, no matter how mundane, right? Find a hobby. I just love a good book, right? So humility, right? Practicing humility. Talk about, moving things in, right? Not making it this one-way street inward, but making it a one-way street outward. Ego observation, right? So we practice humility to a point, right? Just like in all things yoga, part of our practice is to slow things down enough so that we can witness our own behaviors, right? Our own actions, right? And we look to the rules that yoga has kind of set for us, right? Whether it is the yamas and niyamas, right? You might have some other code of ethics that you follow yourself, but that's the code that we're trying to live by, right? So when we observe how it is that we're behaving, and we see that code of ethics, does it hold up? Do our actions, does our behavior hold up to that code of ethics? So in the practice of yoga and meditation, we slow things down enough so that we might observe how the ego might be responding. All right, so that was the third step to a firm foundation in Bhakti Yoga. All right, now this is where it gets like a little complicated. Again, I'm still kind of sorting this out a little bit, but love thyself. So everything I had just said about, not being a narcissist, right? Wanting to fill that void, but I do have to recognize how important it is, so enormously important, that we're not too hard on ourselves. As a matter of fact, that we learn to love ourselves. And this is where I said 4, 5-ish, because 5 kind of comes into play here. To love all of nature, right, is to love thyself, right? So, and I cannot stress how important this is. Part of me has very strong thoughts and feelings about organized religions. And I certainly want to state the great work that they can do, and they often do, but also how so often man, right, the human mind can manipulate it in such a way that it becomes so distorted. And we see this in extremism. And I'm not talking about Islamic is extremism. I'm talking about Christian extremism, right? Extremism in Judaism. Heck, there is extremism in Hinduism as well. I'm not so sure about Buddhism or Taoism, but I'm sure there are, right? So anyway, my main point is that to love all things, right? Bhakti, right? To have deep love, devotion, find that deep connection to nature. And in turn, right, when you love all that is in nature, what you're doing is loving yourself because you're part of it, right? So I bring up the extremist perspective in other religions because so often they're filled with hate. It becomes an us versus them. And it can't be viewed that way. I mean, again, this is the way some religions are understood and taught, unfortunately. To know that the words, of Matthew or Luke or whoever, they were written from the human perspective. Were they divine teachings? Yes. But they were written by humans, and therefore they're fallible. So to be very careful not to take, and certainly not just take certain passages, but to not take any of the words so literally. And this gets me to my very last point here in the book. And this is from the first chapter. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. Ah, yes. Here we are. So, Swami Vivekananda's teacher, those of you who might not know about Ramakrishna, right? So this is an order of Vedanta, but his teacher would tell the story. And this is how Vivekananda writes it. Bhagavan Ramakrishna used to tell a story of some men who went into a mango orchard and busied themselves in counting the leaves, the twigs, and the branches, examining their color, comparing them, and noting down everything most carefully, and then got up and with a learned discussion on each of these topics, which were undoubtedly highly interesting to them. But one of them, more sensible than the others, did not care for all these things, and instead thereof began to eat the mango fruit. And he was not wise. And was he not wise? Excuse me. And was he not wise? So leave this counting of leaves and twigs and this note-taking to others. This kind of work has its proper place, but not here in the spiritual domain. You can never once see a strong spiritual man among these leaf counters. Religion, spirituality, the highest aim, the highest glory of man, does not require so much labor as leaf counting. If you want to be bhakta, it is not at all necessary for you to know where Krishna was born in Mathura or in Raja, what he was doing, or just the exact date on which he pronounced the teachings of the Gita. You only require to feel the craving for the beautiful lessons of duty and love in the Gita. All the other particulars about it and its author are for the enjoyment of the learned. Let them have what they desire. Say Shanti, Shanti, right? Peace, peace, to their learned controversies, and let us eat the mangoes. And this is very similar to, I do not remember which Upanishad, but it talks of higher and lower knowledge. In higher knowledge, well, let's talk about lower knowledge, right? Lower knowledge is all of this, right? It's reading the Upanishads itself. Lower knowledge is mantra. Lower knowledge is practicing yoga. Right? Higher knowledge is the experience. Right? You can't replace it. And it's something that just simply cannot be replaced by words or leaf counting. Right? It is the communion one has with eating the mango. So, those words that are in the Bible, right? It's not to be the letter of the law, right? The words in the Quran or the Torah, right? It's not the letter of the law. What it is instructions, right? I always said this about the Yoga Sutra as well, right? The Yoga Sutra is essentially, and like the Bible, right? Like Torah, so on, so forth. It's an instruction manual for the mind. It's an instructional manual for the mind to reach its own transcendence. And unlike putting together some IKEA furniture, which has very clear, concise steps, right? The words in the Gita, or in the Bible, or in the Sutra, or in the Dadi Ching, it falls short of its essence. Right? The Dadi Ching, right off the bat, right? The words of the Tao, right? Is not the true Tao, right? The words, the very first passage in the Tao Te Ching states that the word that can be spoken, that can be written, is not the eternal Tao. Right off the bat, Lao Tzu knew how important it was that the words that you're reading on the page fall way short from the experience of the transcendent state. All right, well, let's transition to breathing, okay? Because I've taken up a lot of your time. All right, so we'll sit up nice and tall. Oh, thank you, Lar. Great seeing you here. All right, you can close your eyes if you'd like. Ears and shoulders and hips aligned. Relax your face. Let your mind just fall into your breathing. Catch a rhythm, your own rhythm. And today we're going to work on just exhale retentions. All right, and we're going to do 3 rounds of controlled breathing with counts, and then we'll set aside some time for quiet reflection. If at any time that you feel as though you might be falling short of your breath, I strongly suggest you just move back into regular breathing. This should not be too much a struggle, okay? So we'll take a few deep breaths. Let's move to an exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Now with control, inhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And loosen control of your breathing. Now stay focused. Breathe smooth and even. I want you to take the next few moments to reflect on the things that we're so grateful for. Right? Just don't list a bunch of words. It's almost better that you keep it to a minimum. If it's like a friend or a loved one, to have the image in your mind. If you're grateful for the work that you do, even though it might be challenging, right? You might even reflect on that. Could be your pets. Could be just, what you might have right now. It could be love itself. Exhale. Take a deep inhale and lift your shoulders up towards your ears. And exhale out through your mouth. Roll your shoulders back and down. I want to thank you so much for joining me this morning or whenever. Really appreciate it. Stay grateful. All right, and have a wonderful day. Be sure to take care of yourself. Take care of others. Peace.